And now, a show with inappropriate language, the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week my guest is a guy who I've casually known for at least a decade. I'm talking about LJ Strenio. LJ's a guy that I used to see when he would come to the K2 offices to visit his sponsors, Line Skis and Full Tilt Boots. He always came off as a really likable kid who was always doing something. He was on the ramp, in the gym, building something, mounting something. He always looked busy. He'd be there for a few days and then head off to film for his edits in the Traveling Circus, various video parts, and X Games Real Snow. LJ has a mixed bag of tricks that fit into all types of ski content. Some relatable stuff, some creative stuff, and a lot of absolutely gnarly urban shit. While I don't know LJ too well, I'd see him on the road at times, and one incident that I remember clearly was at the Orage Masters in Whistler. This is a theme-based competition where team managers are part of the team, and points are given out not only based on tricks, but how the team works together in order to carry out the theme. The year I'm thinking about, K2 had a Hot Dog the Movie theme, and it was fucking amazing. We stole the show in terms of thematics and should have won again. I wore a full-on hot dog costume, and not a cheesy one. I had a full Disney-worthy hot dog costume with room inside to have a bullhorn. So I'm on snow, mid-mountain in the finish corral, and I'm generally being an idiot. It made for some pretty amazing pictures. And while I was sitting there, LJ Strenio runs up behind me and kneels down. Sleepy Joe Schuster pushes me over, and I fall pretty hard, and they start sprinting away from me. I was pretty pissed off and got in full chase mode to tackle whoever did that. As I'm sprinting in this hot dog costume, I can hear people laughing as I'm chasing LJ, and he's way faster than me, so there's no way I'm going to catch up to him. I trip towards the end of my sprint. I end up hitting my head on my bullhorn, and then lay down on the snow for a few minutes, because I'm sure it looked funny to do that, and I was pretty pissed off as well. I don't hold any of that against LJ, as that's what the Orage Masters are all about. I hold it all against Joe Schuster. But based on that story, and everything I know from LJ's body of work, if you asked me if I thought LJ would ever work for someone like NASA, I would have laughed. I mean, he doesn't seem like the John Sims type to me. That pro skier seemed really smart. But what do I know? On the podcast, we walk through LJ's life and times, starting in Pennsylvania and ending in a secret underground base in the Mojave Desert. Wait until the end. He discusses some things that he probably shouldn't, and it's amazing. Before we get into it, I need to thank Ben Fresco and Jeff Matura over at Elan Skis for hooking my kid up with skis. Next, I want to ask you to do a few things for me. The first is tell a friend about the show. If you've already told a friend, please tell a different one. I don't have big marketing budgets, and the tell a friend method is something that seems to be working. I also want to ask you to follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. And finally, I want you to support my great sponsors who make this show happen. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optic, the Summit at Snoqualmie, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Please use the codes in their ads to get yourself some deals. Now, let's talk to LJ Strenio. You almost claim that your first action sport was rollerblading, is that correct?
Oh yeah, it fully was. If it weren't for rollerblading, I would never have become a skier.
Were you into the scene?
I was definitely getting to the age where the scene was becoming apparent to me before I transitioned, but I remember very clearly I was in third grade. Two of my buddies, Thomas Martin and Adam Kinney, both took the middle wheel out of their rollerblades and started sliding curbs, and I was like, I want some of that. I want to be a part of that.
You're like 11 or 12 years old when you're doing this, maybe a little bit younger, but do you ever hear shit about being a rollerblader? Because that's one thing that some people that moved away from rollerblading moved away because they were sick of people saying, why don't you get a skateboard? And saying that rollerblading wasn't cool. Did you ever hear that growing up?
I mean, a little. I started skateboarding too, and I skateboarded quite a bit. I'm very anti-hate no matter what people are doing. Action sports are all super similar in my eyes. So the fact that people need to like push other people away, it really annoys me. So yeah, I probably heard it a little bit. It was usually from one of my skateboarding friends who was worse at skateboarding than I was. So they couldn't really talk too much trash.
Not being about hate at all. The one area in the world that people still make fun of people is the action sports world. I mean, whether you're making fun of a rollerblader or there's a scooter guy out there seems to be a lot of hate thrown around, and it's the one place that it goes unchecked. Do you ever look at it like that?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's strange, but it is just part of it. I experience like localism in surfing quite a bit. One of the spots I surf is like locals only, and definitely got hassled. So it's definitely made me more aggressively angered by it. But it also reminds me to stay in check and to respect other people that do things that maybe I don't think are cool. That's all relative.
What's the worst locals only type situation that you've ever seen?
I was in the water a year and a half ago at said spot, and I was surfing the inside section where it's not as good. The wave has kind of two sections, and since there was a lot of people out and I wasn't supposed to be out there, I just deferred to the inside part. A local was getting off of a wave where the first section ended on a smaller one that wasn't breaking all the way through, and then hopped off right in front of us basically and was paddling out as one of these like set waves was coming through, and so it was going to break perfectly right where we were sitting. So he hopped off this wave and positioned himself directly behind this kid next to me who also was quote unquote not a local. And so this local was like, oh sick, I'm going to like double up and catch this wave too, and turns to paddle, and he put himself directly in this position. And this kid was right there, hadn't moved an inch this whole time. This dude had just paddled himself into running into this kid, so neither of them catch the wave. And the kid, even though he did nothing wrong, was like super apologetic because he knew how this spot goes. And the dude just blew up on him, pushed him off his board in the water. The water's super deep, but he's just like treading water, and this dude's leaning over him like he's about to punch him in the face. I'm always super passive out there, and I just ignore it and paddle away, and nothing ever physical really happens. But at that point, if he had tried to like punch or do whatever the next move he was going to make, I was like, this is it. I'm going to have to jump in and like fight this dude. And there's a bunch of other guys, so it would have been really bad. But thankfully, he just talked some trash and then went on his way. And that kid went in, and I was very adamant that I don't go in after that. I didn't want to like reward that behavior, but it was super tense and just super lame.
Yeah, it's crazy that shit like that happens. Are these guys like 55-year-old vert skater type dudes?
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, or that you would guess that, because most of them are, like mid-40s, grumpy old men that have a chip on their shoulder and feel like they need to own something.
Well, we won't talk about grumpy old men anymore. We'll talk about your whole start, and home for you is the home of snowboarding, maybe not where the sport was founded, but Burlington, Vermont, the home of Burton. What was life like growing up there? Was it mom, dad, two sisters, and upper to middle class lifestyle?
Yeah, I'd say you hit it pretty right on the head. My parents split up when I was pretty young, but were both super supportive and didn't let it affect our lives at all. And Burlington's just an amazing place to grow up for whatever you want to do, but especially winter sports, obviously. I grew up playing all the different season sports and being told that I need to pay attention in school, and was slowly outside of school learning about sports like rollerblading and skateboarding and skiing and skiboarding.
Did you also play team sports?
I played soccer when I was a lot younger and did track and field as well. I played football all through middle school and the first bit of high school. But the older I got, the more I realized that my interests were in some sort of action sports.
Before your parents split up, they're both skiers, I believe, and that became part of your life?
My parents didn't ski until like college, I think. But they were both active people. My mom ran a marathon when she was pregnant. My dad was super active too and loved to ski. But they were just super supportive, and they were like, we're moving to Vermont, skiing something really cool to do. And before they split, we would always take vacations to Vermont to ski for a week.
Where did you live before?
So I was born in Vermont, and then when I was like 6 months old, we actually moved to Pennsylvania, the town over from Wallish, actually, which is funny. We lived in Bethel Park for like 6 or 7 years. And then my parents split when I was 6 or 7 or something. We moved up to Vermont, but my dad ended up moving up there too. Pretty much the neighborhood over. That was home from there on out.
Okay. Back then, late 90s, the X Games are a huge thing, and were they a big deal in your world? Was that something you kind of looked at as the pinnacle?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have cable TV, so I couldn't really watch them that much, but my mom got me a highlights of the 98 X Games VHS. There was no skiing yet, but there was ski boarding in it. There's the one that Leventhal got third and Mike Nick won. So I idolized those guys, and they were in Burlington. I think I was very influenced by them, but when I was younger still, like rollerblading was like fully my thing. I started doing flips on rollerblades when I was 9, and I just remember some coach seeing me do a flip at the skate park and talking to my mom, trying to get me to join like a team or something. But ski boarding was like a way to rollerblade in the winter when there was snow. Then that started taking over, and then I decided I wanted to ski instead, and slowly just all of a sudden forgot about how it all started and was just tunnel vision skiing.
You find ski boards, you're 12, and it's the easy transition from rollerblading. Did your family think it's weird that you're switching to short skis?
No, it was kind of just like this cool little gimmicky novelty, it seemed like. My dad worked with some woman who was like a ski instructor at Smuggler's Notch, which is my home resort. And she was like, oh yeah, you should give these to your kids. It makes learning really easy. And I was like, oh, I can do a front flip on these. Like, sweet. I was like, skiing, you can't do tricks on skis. That's like stupid. This is just like rollerblades. I wanted to jump on trampolines and do flips. And rollerblading was an outlet to do that. So it wasn't even the medium. It was more like when you're a little kid, you can go like 40 miles per hour and roam like the wilderness by yourself. It's super appealing. So like it was more this sense of freedom that I could like do anything, and I'm just a little kid.
What else are you doing to occupy your time? Because I believe you have a really huge love for Star Wars, and there's like a nerd factor to you as well. You've made your own computer game. Are you into all that stuff when you're coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was maybe some background to me realizing that I'm into more sciencey stuff. I didn't even know what computer science was, which is what I'm studying right now. Even like 10 years ago, I didn't really know what that meant. But yeah, I was like super Star Wars nerd, lots of video games, just loved video games growing up. And I guess I had like a nerdy side too.
When you say you played a ton of video games, on an average week in your video game prime, you probably still play them, but in your average week, how many hours a week are you gaming?
The end of middle school, the beginning of high school, when we got high-speed internet, I played Counter-Strike 1.3, which probably means nothing to you. People probably don't even know that that was a thing. But high school is crazy how much of a joke it can be if you don't want to take it seriously. I took it seriously enough, but I would come home from school, and I feel like freshman year of high school, I probably played 6 hours of Counter-Strike every single night, 5 days a week, and then probably played a bunch on weekends too. Like if I wasn't outside doing something, I was definitely just inside drinking Mountain Dew, eating like microwavable Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches, and playing Counter-Strike with my buddies.
How does that change over time? I know right now you're in school and you've got a lot going on, but do you still manage to drink a lot of Mountain Dew and play a lot of video games?
Nah, I probably would play a lot of video games still, but time is so precious, and I feel like that same kind of interest or drive, I try to channel it into my schoolwork and programming and doing fun side projects, but I feel like I get a similar satisfaction tinkering with Arduino boards or Raspberry Pis or finding some new like tech stack to try to learn or play with. It's not very productive, but it has similar satisfaction. So sometimes I play video games and it's fun, but I usually get the similar satisfaction from doing something I consider more constructive.
I didn't understand most of that, but it doesn't really matter. Whatever.
Sorry.
You do a lot of nerdy stuff that has to do with computer programs named from things that I don't really know, and that's totally cool. High school for you is totally different than traditional experience because I think you might do a year or two at Burlington High, and then you end up going to a private school. You go to Waterville Academy. That is one of those elite schools that's like $40,000 a year. And I don't know if you go all 4 years. I couldn't really figure it out. But how does the transition happen? How long are you there?
Yeah, I had a very non-traditional high school. I spent the first 2 years of my high school education just regular. And really, I went to like a ski summer camp after my last year of middle school. And that was when things really clicked for me. I don't know what happened, but there was nothing in the world except for skiing from then for like the rest of my life. And my freshman year of high school, I learned all the fundamental tricks, spinning all four ways up to like 7 and a bunch of flips and switch rodeos and all this stuff. And it just like all clicked for me at once. And I just got tunnel vision, started competing my sophomore year and had a little bit of success. And then my parents were seeing that it was something that I was taking pretty seriously and they wanted to do whatever they could. And Waterville and CVA both came up and I asked my parents, and like you said, I'm sure it's like 40 grand. It might even be more now to do the like year-long school. And I couldn't be like a full-time student. It was like a lot of money and whatever. But they also had like a semi-program where like you spend like just your winter semester there, and your teachers from your home school, and must hate me, would send my coursework, and you just do the coursework with a tutor at the academy. And so I wasn't like a real student. I was like a tutor student there. And I did that just for my junior year. It was still like a ton of money. The following winter, my senior year of high school, I won Rails to Riches and won a little bit of money. I tried to give it to my parents, just be like, thank you so much. And they were like, no, like just use that to like do the next thing. I remember being so grateful they did that for me. Because that year at Waterville was actually the year that I won the Young Gun Open that Mike Nick started along with Jay Lev and the other guys. And I'm online today still from that contest that was that winter that I spent at Waterville.
You're 16 years old then. You're up in Quebec. You win that contest. You get a year sponsorship by Cyber Cartel, I think, which is a big clothing company back in that day. And it's your first real big taste of success. It gets the Meathead Films crew from the East Coast to really see you and have you put on the radar. I'm sure that's when free skis start coming about. Do you end up hooking up with Liberty?
I had like a flow deal with Liberty up until then, but that's when I ended up getting onto Line from Liberty.
At that event?
Yeah, because Line was one of the one-year contracts that you got. It was a one-year contract with Level Gloves, Scott Goggles, Line Skis, and Cyber Cartel.
Okay. And I guess Liberty sticks out for me because it's that same year where you have a part in Level 1 Super Unknown, and that's a video contest of the up-and-coming skiers, and pretty much the top 3 over the years are people that you still talk about. You don't win that contest, but you start out in K2s on it, and then you're on Liberty.
Yeah.
Between that and the contest in Quebec, that paved the way for your whole career.
Totally. It was like 0 to 60 for me. It felt crazy. Like K2 Fugitives was the last pair of skis that I think I ever purchased just because their price point was so good. And they were a good ski too. And then I was on Liberty for less than a year. And then a year later, I was at Orage Masters watching Tanner Hall and Corey Vanuler and whoever else drop in. Fun event. But I was like, I'm technically competing against these guys right now. It's like, what is this? Just that one event, it really pulled through and did what it said it was going to do. It was like giving you a shot to make something out of it. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. One thing, especially back then, it seemed like helmets worn in video parts weren't always looked at as cool by any means.
Totally.
And while you're not doing a shit ton of urban at that point, you always did wear a helmet in the beginning and throughout your whole career. Do you ever hear shit for always wearing one?
Thankfully, in our sport, it's so accepted. I mean, obviously, it's generally accepted that it looks cooler to not wear a helmet. I mean, I get it, too. It's a bummer, but especially now, I've had so many concussions, man, that it's scary. We don't even know the full extent of what's going to happen. I'm so scared that I've had these minor personality tweaks that are imperceivable but will propagate as I age from these unknown concussions throughout the years. But it's sweet that skiing, it's very normal to wear a helmet. Everyone wears a helmet. You can go 60 miles an hour in like 2 seconds just pointing your skis down the hill without even knowing what you're doing. I'm a huge helmet fan. I've broken a bunch of helmets, so they're doing their job, but I don't think I've ever had someone say anything to me about wearing one.
How many times do you think a helmet has saved your life?
Saved my life? Like from dying?
Yeah.
I would say 0 to 1 times.
Okay.
But, I mean, who knows? I guess cracking a helmet, it's going to be something really bad that happens otherwise. So probably tons of times, life-changing difference for sure. I would say save me from a life where I wouldn't be who I am. I couldn't talk or something or didn't know who I was, maybe like 5 times. There's been some hard head hits, man.
Based off of everything that I've seen over the years, you punish your body in urban settings. The way that you fall on some of these features are ridiculous. And yeah, I'm sure you're breaking helmets. And what do you think, if you were to put a ballpark on the amount of times that you've seen stars, what would that be?
That I've seen stars?
not stars, but you just had that like screen in your head for a second, or you black
Yeah.
out for a second.
No, I've seen stars like at least 24 times. Yeah, a ton. So many times.
And when you see stars, how many days do you take off?
I would say until I was like 22 or 23 and started hearing about stuff, I would keep skiing. Like, there was a poor boys shoot where we were hitting like a massive jump. I'm pretty sure I got a concussion every day for like 4 days in a row. I remember the last day being like, maybe I should take a little time off. And was just like, whatever, I'm fine. None of them were like very obvious concussions. I'm pretty sure if you're seeing stars or your vision goes blurry, you probably have some kind of minor concussion. I've definitely had at least like a couple dozen of those. And those don't have always long lasting effects that are immediately obvious. So like you can keep skiing the rest of the day after hitting your head like that. It's scary. I've had that tons of times. So we'll see what happens.
Well, the good news is they found that there's nothing wrong with having a ton of concussions in the future, so you're totally fine. I'm totally kidding about that. But one thing that is very important to you is your brain, because you graduate in high school in, I think, 3 years, and then you head out to college right away, and that's not something that every pro skier does. But you go straight to school, and is the whole program for you, I'm going to ski as much as possible, and I'll schedule school around it. It doesn't matter how long it takes?
Pretty much. I graduated like a semester early and spent my senior year just living in Utah. I didn't want to go to college at all. My parents were like pretty adamant I go. I wouldn't expect them to pay for it for me, but I was like, if I'm going to have to pay for it, I don't even want to go. So I spent like my senior year living in Utah with friends, and then didn't really want to go to school, but my parents were like, just go and you can ski as much as you want and just go. I went and I took it seriously and actually ended up being a good time. And I'm so grateful that I went, even though I couldn't see the bigger picture. But the whole time it was just nothing but skiing for me. I spent my freshman year taking winter classes and then spent the next 4 years doing summer, fall semesters. And even the summer semesters, I only would do online so that I could spend my entire summer skiing at Wendell's. So I was only really in the classroom like 3.5 months a year.
How long did the whole college process take for you?
It took me 5 years, but I double majored. So I feel like that extra major was pretty much that 5th year.
Now it is time for me to take a sponsor break, and my first sponsor is Evo. They have supported me since day one, and I've shopped there since the day they opened their doors. They have all the great brands, the most knowledgeable and approachable staff, and they know what they're doing when it comes to boot fits, ski and snowboard tunes. They're really good at service. And when I don't feel like leaving the house, I get my stuff through evo.com. They have the same deals, but with free shipping on orders over $50, a no-hassle return policy, and a low price guarantee. And for listening to the show, I've got a new deal from Evo for you on all Evo branded products. They make some amazing stuff. I've been using their ski poles that are just as good as my $100 poles, but I paid a fraction of the price for them, and their offering is a whole lot more than just ski poles. When you head over to evo.com and check out, enter the code POWEL20, that's all one word and the number 20, no spaces, and you'll get 20% off of all Evo branded products. And when you do it, because Evo is made of good and inclusive people, they're going to give an additional 2% of all branded sales to local youth organizations. They're helping you have fun and making a difference in the community. Next up, it's Stanley. They are the brand that invented the keep things hot and cold category back in 1913, and they are located down the street from my house in Seattle. You remember Stanley from that green bottle that kept your grandpa's coffee hot all day long. They still do that, and so much more. When I think about Stanley, it's all about water bottles and pint glasses. The water bottle is a simple classic Stanley style that keeps my water cold for a couple more hours than whatever you put your water in. The pint glass keeps my beer ice cold way longer than I need it to, and the beveled edge makes me hydrate faster for some reason. It just feels good, and you're going to want to feel good too. To do that, head on over to stanley-pmi.com, go shopping, and you will get 30% off your entire order when you use the code TPM30. That's all one word, the number 30. When you check out, you'll get that 30% off. Everything you buy helps support the show, so please do that. Now we're going to jump back into the podcast. You majored in English and film, which is all stuff that seems logical for when you're a pro skier using the film part, maybe doing some writing with the English stuff. But all stuff that I doubt you use today.
Yeah, I think as far as like concrete skills, aside from some video and photo stuff that I do that relates to skiing, that's pretty inherent. I don't use any concrete skills I learned from like my English degree, but I would say that the critical thinking skills involved in the thought process about making decisions are very invaluable and something that I use in every decision I make every day. I know it's kind of like a cop out, but I know I wouldn't be back in school right now if I didn't have a degree in English. So despite not actually using the literal skills, I definitely do not regret it.
Yeah, your parents were very smart for you. These are the clown school days, and that's...
Yes, you know what clown school is. Sick.
Some of the best park edits that you ever put out were almost during those clown school days. You hadn't hooked up with 4x9 or any of those guys yet, and clown school was kind of the crew you found.
Yeah, we were like the next generation. All the 4x9 guys were a year older than us, and we all met exactly the same way as 4x9 and kind of did the exact same thing and hung out with those guys, but we made our own edits. And that was clown school. And it was at a time where like online videos were becoming a thing. And Kevin Steen and Evan Heath as well, they both did an amazing job making these edits that people still talk about. Some of them, I've still heard people mention them today, which is super flattering because it was just a bunch of our college buddies just going and skiing and having a good time and filming what we could. We didn't take it seriously, but we were skiing as hard as we could. So it was definitely our best stuff.
And this is all at a time when Wallace really is taking urban to another level. He's able to compete as well, and I think you're competing at this time too. But seeing what he's doing in urban, is that kind of what gets you and your crew heading out more to the streets?
I hit urban like on ski boards in middle school. I was always super gung-ho urban guy. So Tom was like definitely a huge, and still is like a huge inspiration, changing the game on all levels. So I definitely looked up to him and was always trying to mimic him, or maybe not mimic him, but just keep up basically. But I would say like me trying to up my street game was just my progression. I was slowly throughout all this time kind of working my way up through the ranks of film companies, starting with Meatheads, and early college during the clown school days. I started filming with Rage Films. Both of those film companies just had a great couple groups of guys that were super stoked on what they were doing and just super awesome to be around before switching and eventually headed towards Poor Boys.
You film with the Meatheads a lot.
Yeah.
That's kind of how every East Coast kid builds his street cred, then 4x9 and Rage. But you're competing as well. I think the first year on the Dude Tour, you're like a half-pipe skier, which is laughable because you're up against Tanner, Simon, Dory, and a whole bunch of people. How the hell do you even qualify for half-pipe?
It was crazy. That year was insane for me because, yeah, I'm not a half-pipe skier at all. The year before, there was a series of contests, but the Dude Tour hadn't really formed yet. There was just an organization that had gathered funding. And I did well at a couple of those events. It was like North American Open and Big Bear Open and one other. And they formed the Dude Tour the next year. And it was like, oh, this is like a pro tour. And I got invited. I just wanted to do slopestyle, but they're still trying to figure it out because it was the first year. So they're like, well, these people are probably good at one. They're probably good at the other. We need to fill the spot. So I got a spot in halfpipe and I didn't turn it down, but I wasn't even going to try to qualify. I fell in classic Colorado December weather. It was like nuking snow and windy and couldn't land a slopestyle run and was so devastated. I was literally going to drive home and I was crashing with Wallace at Tom Warnick's place actually. And he was like, dude, why don't you just try halfpipe? This is before people were doing dubs and stuff. And he was like, there's like 4 tricks that people do in the halfpipe. If you can just go to Copper Mountain tomorrow and practice some halfpipe, if you can link like 4 tricks, you'll probably qualify because there's nothing that anyone does to separate themselves. And yeah, I'd skied like a little bit of halfpipe. Springtime when it's mashed potatoes, I'd played in it. So like I knew some of the tricks for sure. But I just linked a run top to bottom and qualified like somewhere in like the mid-teens, and they took 25 or 30 people maybe. I definitely like fully made it in. And the first year, I think they paid you every stop. So I was like, yeah, I'll definitely get paid to ski the halfpipe twice and then spend the rest of the time lapping the slopestyle course with Wallace and whoever else.
You might as well. The next year you qualify for slopestyle, And while competitions, they really are your thing at that point. I mean, between rail jams that you win, I think you win like 5 in a row at Killington. This is like the big time with all the big names. And how do you do overall at the Dew Tour when you qualify for slopestyle?
Not well. I think I'm attracted to the things that I'm not very good at. I'm just not a contest guy. I don't have that cool demeanor that I think the born athletes have. They know they're going to stomp their run. I just get so nervous. There was a couple of years where I feel like my talent was on par with not the top guys, but enough to earn my spot there. But when it came down to it, when it was all on the line, I don't have the personality for it or whatever.
Well, in those things, you have to land everything first try. In the world that you live in now, you don't. So when all the pressure's on, I don't want to say do you fold, but that's not where you excel?
When it's all on the line in a single moment, I don't excel in that. Things that take like extended focus, trying to figure out the ins and outs of a rail, and an urban rail isn't generally something you just walk up to and land and then go home. You got to figure out the quirks to it. And I think that just naturally lended itself better to my focus style. My path was more of a product of just how I naturally functioned than what I necessarily wanted to be good at.
Are you stoked on the contest at this point? Because I feel like there's the first world championships ever. You luck into a spot. I think someone gets hurt and they invite you. And this is the event that they're using to showcase slopestyle to the Olympics. They're like, hey, we can run an amazing event. And these are the athletes we're going to showcase it with. And are you thinking, wait, there's a chance that I could make this Olympic team if I keep focusing on slopestyle?
It was definitely in the back of my head. I wasn't one of the big dog guys. I would have been like a dark horse, but like I knew I could do like all the same tricks. Like you said, though, it's about putting it down all at once. But yeah, getting that invite spot. I was on like an urban trip with Pete Alport and I can't remember who else, but I remember being in the Midwest and yeah, someone got hurt and being like, guys, the IOC is going to watch this event and decide if they're going to put it in the Olympics or not. And I got an invite. They were like not stoked, but they were like, yeah, you got to go. And I bought a plane ticket, and the next day it was back in Park City. It was -26 without wind chill, and was just like lapping these jumps, trying to put down a run. And it was one of the few events that I actually did put a run down and did half decent, which further fed the idea that maybe I could do this. But that kind of like mentality takes so much focus and dedication. And, I went to the next urban trip after that. I can't lap a jump all day doing the same trick over and over again. It just gets boring to me. I want to like figure out something new, land it, and then figure out the next new thing. And I think to be good at competing, you got to love perfecting stuff. And that's never been my style.
Says the guy who does the same rail 480 times.
Just to get to the end. Because it probably wasn't perfect. There's always a little something off.
But if you really wanted to chase that Olympic dream, it's almost a catch-22 for you because filming is what you love to do. But with the creation of the AFP, the governing body within the sport that is going to look at all the events, put point totals to them, they're going to have a world champion. And if you want to have a chance at making the Olympic team, you're going to have to fork out a shit ton of money and go to every AFP stop and make sure you get some points. Because if you don't, there's no chance for you to do that. So do you have to make a decision at some point like, hey, I'm going to focus on competing, or hey, I'm going to focus on filming?
Yeah, the decision kind of made itself for me without me realizing. I thought I could kind of do both still, and found that it was really just taking time away from filming, and I was kind of half-assing these contests, and all my friends stopped competing. Me and Tim McChesney basically would just follow Wallish to every contest because Wallish was already in. He was like killing it this time. And me and Cheddar basically were always like just barely qualified or had wild card spots or did well for once and were just in this contest and had a spot. But once he stopped competing and a couple of the other guys that we would travel around with, I did like one more year of traveling to these mid-tier contests where Wallish was too big dog to need to go to them. And none of my friends wanted to bother with it anymore just because it kind of gets old going to a contest, having bad weather, not doing well. And so I remember this last year, which is the year or two before the Olympics. And I had like an injury in the mix there, but it wasn't that fun and I wasn't that focused on it. And I realized it was never going to happen. I'm not a contest guy, but the delusion unfolded too.
You mentioned that you had started filming with Poor Boys that year, and I will bring that up in a couple minutes, but we'll talk about the end of that season first. You end up tearing your MCL, and how do you do that?
I was hitting this really big jump in Keystone, and there were sleds reasonably parked at the bottom of the landing. Someone was worried that maybe it was a mistake to park them where they were, but I landed switch pretty deep and was like sliding on my back and slid into a snowmobile, and it like tweaked my knee and tore my MCL. And I was never going to like sue them or anything, and it was no one's fault. It was just like unfortunate. It was perfect timing. It was like mid-May. Things were mellowing out, but I did tear my MCL, and that was the end of my season. But I still skied Wendel's 6 weeks later, so it was pretty mellow.
So that's not even really a reality check for you. You're like, I can power through this. I don't need to get cut. I'll be fine.
Yeah. I wasn't too stressed about that.
But what's crazy, I think, about the knee injury is you hurt your MCL around the same time your sister's like, hey, I'm going to train for a half marathon. And while you might not like contests, it sounds like you must be a competitive person because you're like, well, if she's going to do a half marathon, I'm going to do a full marathon, and I'm going to do it 4 months out of hurting my knee.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was subconsciously competitiveness, but I would call it more she planted the idea in my head, and I realized I wanted to do it too. Because I always was kind of into running. I did like an unofficial marathon when I was 19. I just went for like a 26-mile run. So like I always wanted to do like a legit one. So when she told me that, I visited her. We went for like a 10-mile run together. And I had been really healthy that summer because I was coming off that injury. So I started running a lot to get back in shape. And I was skiing and skating every day. And I was just young. So I was all around in like really good shape. And then we went for that like 10-mile run. And she was telling me that she's doing a half marathon. That kind of just sat in my head. And I just kind of quietly kept running further and further. You know, I started school that fall and would just go running after school every day. And once my mileage hit like the mid to upper teens, I knew that I was like secretly training for a marathon without knowing it. And then like 2 weeks before this marathon, I signed up and was like, I'm clearly going to run a marathon. I just haven't wanted to commit to it. And yeah, sent one. But I got a few months training in despite being in denial about it.
Another thing about running that I heard about you is that in college, once there's a night where you're just hammered and you're like, I'm going to run a marathon home. We're 26 miles from the house, and you're just out.
It wasn't 26 miles, but that was how I got more into distance running, was being at parties across town and being really drunk and just something clicking in my head and being like, I want to go home and like eat a pizza and go to bed. This sucks. This is boring. There was like maybe 1 or 2 parties where I was just like stranded. And I realized that if you can run a far distance, then you can get yourself home. And so I just started on weekends just running home from parties, and I've probably had a few drunken nights of like 10-mile runs.
That's crazy to me. Going into the season where you're competing a bunch, you get a call from Cody Carter. He invites you to shoot for Jib Jam 2, and I would think that may be the invite of a lifetime because Poor Boys at that point is on top of the ski world. Level 1's arguably there for the skiing you like to do as well, but Poor Boys is the established heavy hitter in that world. You're really young. You get to go on the shoot and you get to meet the Poor Boys crew. Who's at that shoot?
Yeah, that was crazy. That's where I met Cody Carter and Tyler Hamlet, and I guess I don't remember who was there, but they were like the big dog filmers. I don't think Johnny was there. I feel bad. I'm probably forgetting someone. I hope I'm not. I'm sure Alport was there, but he might not have been. But I need to throw his name in the mix. But for athletes, it was like all the big name Poor Boys guys were there, and it just seemed crazy. That was before I actually was like officially filming with them. I always grew up thinking Poor Boys were like the biggest of the big dogs. Happy Days was the movie I grew up like watching on repeat and like burned a hole through. Poor Boys were like the biggest of the big at the time. I definitely was starstruck.
Did you go in there with something to prove? Like, hey, I want to make sure these guys shoot with me after this trip and I need to prove I belong?
I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but I didn't even think that was a possibility. I just thought I get to go to this contest, this semi-contest thing, or just like a shoot and go like play around and hit jumps. And my jump game wasn't quite up to par at that point. There was like the year that I was like starting to really figure out jumping on like a higher level. But the other people that were there were doing like way more super legit stuff.
This is like 2008-ish.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like a long time ago. But just remember seeing other people do crazy stuff and be like, well, I can't quite hang, but I'll just give it my best and try to go really big and do some loose stuff.
From there, you end up filming again with Poor Boys. You don't have a full part in Revolver. Is it the first trip for the Revolver shoot that you have the SWAT team called on you?
Yes. That's like one of my favorite ski stories. And that was the first shoot I ever got invited on. I think Alport hit me up. It was super cold and the snow sucked. It was like sand. There was no bonding at all. It took forever to build anything. And yeah, we were hitting this creeper ledge behind a school in an alleyway, but on the other side of the alleyway, it was the backside of a bank. And it was like midnight, and we had like these lights set up, and winches weren't really a thing yet. So we were pulling back a bungee with a car because it was so high strung. We needed so much speed. So there's like a car going back and forth. And we saw all of a sudden this helicopter starting to like circle, like for being in the city, like kind of low. Cause it's like downtown. And we were like, I wonder if that helicopter's looking for us, because it had like a spotlight on or something. And then like the spotlight went on to us. All these cars circled up on us. One dude walked out. He's like, you see that helicopter? That's for you. We just got a call that this bank is getting robbed. We like figured out you guys aren't bank robbers, but what do you think you're doing? And we were like, we're just skiing. We're so sorry. We'll go home. They didn't do anything. We weren't doing anything wrong, but we might have even kept sessioning. I can't remember.
Have you ever been arrested for skiing at a spot?
No, I never have. I've never been the guy to think that when an authority tells you to leave, that you're somehow going to like defy them and not have consequences. So I've been super pissed off and mad, but I've never let myself get to the point where I need to be arrested.
Okay. Speaking of super pissed and mad, I feel like your whole career and probably your whole life is a series of highs and lows. And I don't know you that well, but watching your video parts, you can see the hockey temper at times, the times when you're really stoked. But is highs and lows an accurate way to describe you? I mean, if you're not doing something, do you get into a dark place?
Everyone has their natural flow, and some people are more expressive than others. Stuff that's like more personal, I definitely keep closer in, but the stuff that I don't really care about, I don't worry about expressing it. And I guess I'm naturally fairly expressive with my basic moment to moment emotions. And I think skiing, especially when you want something, definitely brings it out. Especially urban can be such a mental battle. I'm not stressing as much about how I'm coming off to the people around me and more just doing what needs to get done so that I can mentally reset. But yeah, I'd say I'm definitely a pretty expressive person naturally.
It's time for me to take my last sponsor break, and the brand I want to talk about is Spy Optic. They're a brand that I'm so happy to have involved with the show because not only do they have an incredible collection of sunglasses, but it's time to think winter, and Spy has been supporting all things snow since they started 25 years ago. Now, they have rad signature collections, game-changing technologies, and all their goggles have the Happy Lens, which really sets Spy apart from everyone else. And that's a big reason why you should be wearing Spy. The biggest reason to me that you should wear them is that Spy's goggles look better than everyone else's. I always think the other brands will catch up and fit and finish, but they don't. Spy's look better, and you will look better wearing them. For listening to the podcast, I'm going to make it easier than ever for you to get a pair of Spy sunglasses or goggles. All you need to do is head over to spyoptic.com, do your shopping, and when you check out, you'll get 20% off when you enter the code POWEL20, that's all one word with the number 20, and you're done. You're supporting the show, and you're going to look better than you ever have before. My next sponsor is the Summit at Snoqualmie. They should be the choice for all Seattle skiers and snowboarders, as they are our local mountain. And here's why you should go there. There's no long road trips that waste a lot of your weekend getting to and from the mountain when you head to the summit. It's only 45 minutes away, and when you get there, you will never be turned around because the mountain has no parking for you. On top of that, the terrain is awesome. There are 4 mountains to choose from, tubing, and no big corporate pass programs that create huge lift lines. It's the smart choice for those that don't like wasting time. To find out more about getting a season pass or just a daily lift ticket, head on over to summitatsnoqualmie.com and they will have all that information for you. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They brew my favorite Northwest beers, and their cocktails in a can pack a punch and feature the best craft spirits. But what really separates 10 Barrel from its competition is that they live and breathe action sports. This is no bullshit. While a lot of brands want you to believe that they support snow because it's perceived as cool, 10 Barrel lives and breathes this, and they put their money where their mouth is. This year, they produced a snowboard movie, Hold My Beer. They produced a ski movie, Watch This. They'll have a series of hella big air events, and they'll donate a percentage of sales of their seasonal Pray for Snow beer to protect our winters. They really do drink beer outside, and you can find out more about their drinking outside adventures over at 10barrel.com. Those are my sponsors. Now let's get back into the podcast. The next year, you have your first part and your last part with Poor Boys in the Grand Bazaar, something to check off the bucket list. When I look back at the two movies that you're in, Revolver, I don't think it had that much critical acclaim by any means. The Grand Bazaar was good. I don't think it was their best effort either. Is there a reason why you don't shoot a third movie with Poor Boys? Because you end up going to film with Berman, and I would think if Poor Boys is the company that you grew up idolizing, that you'd want to have just a banger part in one of their best movies, and you haven't had that yet.
Yeah, it was such a bummer of a way that it all ended. And I don't think there's any hard feelings at this point. I see those guys a decent bit and definitely had a pretty strong relationship with most of those guys, but it was kind of just an unfortunate series of events. Berman hit me up to film with Level 1, and at the time, Wallish and Cheddar were filming with them. You know, I skied with those guys a lot, so it was my close friends, but I also skied a lot with Walker, who was obviously part of the Poor Boys crew. But Berman hit me up to film, and I was like, I'm going to do both. These are like the two coolest companies. And I just happened to go on a Level 1 trip for a Poor Boys trip, but had every intention of skiing with Poor Boys that year as well. Because up to this point, I've been skiing with these different film companies, but all the while, I've still been filming with Meathead Films. I still would go back east every winter and ski with those guys and do some of like my best urban with them. I always thought like I could keep splitting my time and was doing it every year. So I was like, oh, why not just split it even more? But then I had the most serious injury of my career 3 days into filming with Level 1 in Finland. I broke my kneecap, probably at the height of my career. It was just skiing the best I'd ever skied the year before and the beginning of this year. And then just got unlucky and went a little too hard. And so I didn't get to ski with Poor Boys the rest of that year, but I filmed with Level 1, and then it kind of like trickled off. And then the next year I just filmed with Level 1. I don't even know how it all went down. I feel bad about it.
That injury was gnarly. I remember it was a huge disaster. You were spinning and it didn't work out. And the pain that you looked like you were in, because I've seen you in a lot of pain before, but that one was above and beyond anything you'd ever experienced.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know. Like when you look at your hand, you never think that like something that small and insignificant could cause you a ton of pain. And I know the knee is known for being painful, but I definitely had never experienced anything like that and was in shock and awe. I guess literally in shock probably, but like I could not believe the pain I was feeling. Just mind blanking, don't know where I am, hot ears burning, crazy sheer pain. It was wild.
And how long are you sitting there by the rail waiting before you get taken to a hospital?
10 minutes, I think. It all was like very dreamlike. Moments of clarity and then not knowing what's going on, but it was pretty quick. Those guys all were so cool. I'm so grateful for Nate Abbott and Decker, and we're just so cool about, everyone was just about like taking care of me and getting me in the van and getting me off to a hospital right away. Just remember being so grateful to those guys.
When you get there, they have grim news for you. They're like, hey, you might never ski again. You might never walk again.
Dude.
What goes through your mind when you're in a foreign hospital, you don't know who to trust there doctor-wise, and they're telling you you're not going to walk again?
If you're a medical doctor and listening to this, even if it's true, don't tell kids when they're in a foreign country that they like might not walk again and that they'll definitely never ski again. Like, I don't know what that dude was thinking. It was so crushing. Like, hearing that was worse than like the pain, because as far as I was concerned, my whole life was over. 60 minutes earlier, all I was thinking about was skiing. It was the only thing I cared about. It was my whole life. And then I had some guy being like, oh, you'll probably walk with a limp or something, but you'll never ski again. And he's like, you'll walk. Don't worry, you'll walk. And I was like, I don't want to walk. I want to ski.
Yeah.
I was like freaking out. But the moment didn't last super long because I called my dad and he got a hold of a doctor in Utah, and we got the x-rays sent over, and the doctor in Utah was this super badass dude, this trauma surgeon who had done like a lot of professional athletes at the time. But he took one look at the x-rays. We were like talking to him internationally over the phone, and he was like, yeah, you're going to be good. Tell those guys to give you a shot of this anti-clot medicine so that you don't get a blood clot and die flying. Fly home. And he was like, I'll get you in the ER in like 2 days. He was like, you'll ski again. You'll be good. Get out of there. And the doctors in Finland were like, oh, you don't want to stay with us? We did David Beckham's knee. We'll replace your knee. We'll give you a knee replacement. You're going to be good. You think you're too good? And I was just like, no, I'm getting out of here.
If someone's going to say you're going to be fine and someone's like, you might walk again, yeah, you're definitely getting out of there.
Yeah.
But when you get back, you have your surgery, your leg is locked for 2 months. And that has to be miserable because I feel like you might be an ADD type person and sitting around all day is not in the cards for you. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I definitely am not one to sit still. And 10 years ago, even more so, definitely could not sit still. But I spent a lot of time editing videos, and I learned to play guitar. I started dating my girlfriend, Kristen. We're still dating now. So we've been dating forever, but we had just started dating, and then winter started, and I was just like, all right, see ya. And then all of a sudden I was back, not in school, no job, can't walk. So I was just like, let's hang out. Anytime you want to hang out, I'm home. Let's chill. So I just chilled with my girlfriend like every day, which was really cool, actually.
How long does that whole process take to get back to being 100% in the non-snow?
100% over a year. Every single day I thought about my knee. Like I went from thinking about skiing all day every day to thinking about my knee all day every day. And all I thought about was getting healthy again. I'm going to be 100% again. I'm going to be 100% again. And just PTing so hard as much as I could. There was nothing else for me to do. So I was just so damn focused. More focused than I've ever been ever. Just, I need to heal. I need to get better. And I just took it super seriously and was just either with my physical therapist or a personal trainer or just doing exercises at home. But probably like 13 months. I was able, thankfully, to ski the beginning of the following season at like 11 months. I skied like 4 or 5 months out very gingerly because with a kneecap, it's bone. So once it heals, you're technically healed. But the joint has underwent so much trauma and you've had this surgery to reattach everything that it doesn't function the same. And you have massive amounts of scar tissue, atrophied muscle, and metal too. Nothing works right. And I skied gingerly 4 months out, but not enough to tell. And then the following fall, I started skiing and was in so much pain skiing. And my doctor was like, yeah, you're good. You're cleared to do whatever you want. You're not going to hurt it. And I just remember being so crushed because I was like, if this is skiing, I don't want to ski anymore. It's too painful. But I just kept pushing and I worked out even harder. And then it slowly got better. Towards the end of the following season, it was different, but it was definitely manageable. And my leg was super strong.
2014, you're fully back. And all through these years, pretty much, you've filmed with the line Traveling Circus. This is the Will Wessam and Andy Parry show, where they pretty much live in a vehicle and they travel across the country and eventually the world as dirtbag skiers. You're a reoccurring character. How many episodes do you think you've been in with the Traveling Circus?
Oh, man. I was in a bunch in the beginning, and then the last few years I've really tried to focus more on it because I realized how cool I think it is and how big of a part of skiing. But I don't know, maybe like 15 episodes?
It's pretty much a mix of the real world, true life, and dirtbag skier all piled into a shit Sprinter van. And we're really not going to talk about it that much. But my only question is, you do spend a lot of time in tight spaces with other dudes. That is cool and all, but can also make good friends fight. How many fights have you and Will gotten into?
Oh, man. We've gotten into like a ton of arguments, but serious fights, only a few. And they're really, really bad. Just thinking about some of them just makes my like stomach turn and makes me cringe.
Closed fist punches to the face?
I know there's been closed fist punches, I think, between like Will and Andy, but they've spent so much time together. I know there's been minor altercations, but I've never closed fist hit him. He's probably given me like a solid slap or like He's never really punched me before, but there's been minor physical altercations for sure, short-lived ones.
Another interesting part of your life that I think is totally unexpected for you is your stunt work. You end up connecting with Carl Fosfet, and he was planning on being a stunt double for Vin Diesel in Triple X. He goes to the Dominican Republic, and he's down there for a couple days. He decides it's not for him. He stepped on a decomposing body. He thought the stunts had an unusually high risk in them, and that the Hollywood people were all about hookers and blow, and he was like, I need to get the hell out of here. And then he lets you know about the shoot, and does that thing happen like right away?
Dude, yeah, right away. I hear about it. I help him set up an urban rail he's hitting one day, and he mentions it and said all this. You pretty much hit it right in the head, all the stuff you just said. And I was like, well, I want to do it. I'll do it. He was like, all right, I'll give you their number. And I got a call that same night, I think. And then maybe not the next day, but the following morning was on a flight to the Dominican Republic. It was less than 48 hours from having heard about it for the first time to being on the ground in the Dominican Republic.
You have no clue what you're getting into, I would think. You don't have a SAG card, which gets you your Hollywood insurance. You're pretty much a free agent out there. Do you work with some slimy Hollywood people?
The crews are so big that there's always a few, but the people that I work closely with were super cool. This dude, Todd Schneider, the stunt coordinator, who was actually a U.S. ski team member way back in the day, and he was super cool. Besides him, I was mostly just sticking with the Sweetgrass guys who were kind of running our whole stunt. They're all obviously super cool, but there were some shady characters for sure, unfortunately, doing some shady stuff, but I guess that's how it goes. That's probably a part of every industry. There's always some sketchy dudes doing whatever.
Well, what is the wildest thing that you saw there? Because Carl stepped on a dead body and was uncomfortable based on the personalities he was dealing with. Was there anything that made you uncomfortable?
I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't sure what I was allowed to speak up about. I just tried to keep my head down and do my job. It never even occurred to me that I could be like, this isn't cool. We did say that we wanted to wear helmets on one of the things we did, and they weren't down. And then this random woman walked up, and she was like a producer, and she was like, I'm a producer on this movie. It's only $20,000 to 3D image their head out and the helmets out. If they want to wear helmets, they're wearing helmets. And then whoever we were arguing with totally just got big dogged and shut up. And that was that. And we got to wear helmets on one of the urban features where I was grinding on a roof, and it was super catchy and there was no pads. So I would have dove 12 feet onto this rock path. You would have broken arm or something if you fell, which I guess a helmet won't help with. But if I had hit my head, it would have been bad. So that was probably the biggest conflict we had. It was pretty chill otherwise.
Did you make a shit ton of money?
Yeah, it was cool, man. Yeah, I made a shit ton of, they taxed 40% of it.
Okay.
It was a nice bump for sure.
Yeah, I would think that tax check that you have to write is probably the same amount of money that you get from your combined ski sponsors.
Yeah, it was probably about that.
Speaking of money, and I like to speak of money, did you ever have an energy drink sponsor?
No, I never had an agent or anything, and I would go through spurts of being like, oh, I should be really serious about getting sponsors, and then be like, it's skiing, I don't care about that, and then being like, oh, well, I need money so I can keep doing it, and then be like, oh, this sucks, I don't want to do this, I just want to go skiing. I probably never was as much of a businessman as I should have been.
Who were your main sponsors at the height of your career?
Obviously Line, because they've just been my biggest sponsor my whole career. And then I was probably with Saga at that point too. Line and Saga were my big sponsors. And then either Scott or Giro for goggles at the time. This is going in order of most significant to least significant. And then I've had a few other smaller sponsors throughout the years. I've been with the Ski Monster for quite a while.
Line's one that I'm familiar with, and if you look at Line, they're a corporate brand that's still been able to be core because of the J-Lev history, Josh Malchek still being there. And I would think that brand is a hard one for you to make money at your level, because once they get done paying Wallish, Pollard, the Traveling Circus, then comes LJ, and I'm sure their budgets aren't huge, so you can't be making a killing with them, I wouldn't think.
I was never going to be one of these guys who's going to retire and live the rest of my life off the money, but they give me almost the most support of any of my sponsors, and they've been supporting me for so long. They realize throwing a bunch of money at some dude isn't going to mean that people are going to buy skis. It's about creating an image, I think. And I've just been with Line so long that hopefully when people like think of me, they're like, oh yeah, he's someone that rides for Line. And so I think that comes from building a long-term relationship, I guess. So I've never had a trip I couldn't go on because I didn't have the funding. And if I ever did, I probably could call Josh and be like, Josh, this is going to be a sick trip. Can you give me a little extra for this? He would definitely be like, yeah, no problem.
I would say that paying someone a bunch of money would sell skis, and that Line is the one brand that did do that when they brought on Tom Wallish, because they knew he was going to move product and they had to pay a pretty penny for him. I'm just thinking you almost had a choice of stay cool and core and be with Line, or there could have been another brand like a Head or someone out there that was like, we need the urban guy and we can throw him a bunch of cash. And given you're not going to retire on skiing either way, but I guess you're choosing image over money. Did anybody else ever offer you anything?
There was a year or two where I talked with a couple other brands. Nothing really solidified and came to be, but it was always pretty easy no-brainer because it always kind of came down to like continuing to ski with my friends in a company that was like undoubtedly going to continue to support me, or, you know, a potentially bigger paycheck, but not that long-term security and continuing of a good thing. So I never really followed up on the couple times that I chatted with other companies, and pretty okay with it.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I think you could have sold out if you wanted to, but it's really the choice between selling out and not selling out. Another way you didn't sell out is you stayed with Saga, who's a company that's local to, I think, your school pretty much, or they're right around there.
Yeah.
Another core brand that have all the big fits of the time. Are you one of those people wearing 5XL?
Oh, yeah. I was full on. Yeah, those guys are all super rad. I loved riding for Saga and definitely went all in with the bright Skittles colors and 5XL. It was good times.
So I guess my final question about money and skiing is, you think you ever made it more than 30, 40 grand a year in skiing, other than the Triple X year?
More than 30 or more than 40?
Okay, so you're right in that pocket. That's all we need to know.
Yeah, I mean, I was never like the 100K a year kind of guy, but that's fine. That's not why I'm in it. But it is interesting, the dynamic of money in the distribution. And I'm always curious about it myself. So I guess me sharing is hopefully satisfies other people's curiosity, because I think there's probably some very sharp cutoffs in tiers of pay for good reason. I think I'm probably in this middle ground that's fleeting. I think it's getting harder and harder for people to get funded these days, except for like that top tier of guys. But I was lucky to get into that middle tier, and super grateful to, at least for now, still be sitting in there, hopefully doing my job.
One other thing that money kind of factors into, you're one of the most frugal guys on the planet. You've been able to live a 5-star life on a 1-star budget. You sacrifice no fun, but you sacrifice convenience all the time. And how many days have you lived in a Hyundai Accent?
Oh, one is too many. Yeah, I bought a Hyundai Accent one year. I didn't even own it for a full year, but I don't know. I probably slept with the back down. I probably have like 40 days sleeping in the back of the Accent.
How about your Subaru? How many days have you slept in the back of that?
I've had 2 Subarus. Are we counting both?
Yeah, we're counting both.
Oh, man. Probably half a year total between the two, I would say.
Is there a lot of partying that goes on just so you can pass out in your car?
It's all just like ebbs and flows sometimes, but I was never like drinking in the back of my car so I could fall asleep. But there's definitely times where I was at a party and drinking and didn't want to drive home and slept in the back of my car. That's something I did very frequently throughout college.
And that's a responsible thing to do. And while you're known for filming year after year, the peak of your ski career, I feel like, is coming, at least the peak contest, because when you were a kid, you always wanted to be a part of the X Games. Then X Games comes out with real snow. You get an invite. How do you get that invite?
I like to think I earned it from the season before, because I didn't get invited to the first years of it. I didn't do a lot of urban the year before they started the contest, so I didn't get invited, rightfully so, but was like super crushed because, yeah, it was like a lifetime goal to do anything with the word X Games in it. So the first year of X Games, I spent the whole year filming with Level 1 and just busting ass trying to do the rowdiest stuff I could. And then I literally just sent a real world demo tape style thing, all my clips from the year before, to everyone whose name that I associated with judging the event or holding the event the year before. It was like, I knew you were a part of this in some way. This is my stuff. I really want to do this contest. I'll go twice as hard, I promise. And I don't know if they were already going to put me in or not, but that's what I tried to do, and I got the invite. It was all on.
Okay, and we're not going to talk too much about the tricks. I think everybody should go watch that. But a lot goes into getting all of these shots. Nothing is landed first try. And saying that, have you ever gotten a feature built, set up, speed checked, dialed, and then nailed it in the first few tries? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, definitely. Never something super cool, though.
Not the shit that's going to go in your X Games segment.
Yeah, I've definitely had shots that have been in some kind of edit that I laced first try. But even then, if you lace something first try, unless it's like live or die style, you're going to hit it again and play with it and see what other variations you can do, or like just get a second shot because you set it all up anyway.
Yeah, there's no point in letting all that work go to waste just because you got a shot. Although sometimes there are features where I would think you're relieved to get the shot and you're not going to go back to it.
Yeah, I hate filming with Kai Capella because he's the best rail skier in the world, and we'll go hit a feature together and he'll get it fourth try. 2 days later, I'll still be hiking it and finally get it, and he'll just been hanging out the whole time. You know, we each got our own trick on this rail, and he's been done for 2 days. I'm just like, I wish I was like you.
When all is said and done with that X Games, you get the bronze medal. This isn't a live contest, so how do you find out?
I guess it wasn't live, but it was shooting like a TV show, so we didn't know. They announced it in front of cameras and stuff. So we were all there, and we had the announcer there, and he announced it right in front of us with the cameras on, and then had the people come up, and we had no idea until then. They wanted the reactions on camera. We found out live on camera. It was super intense.
So you're getting older. I mean, you came up in the gnarly era of urban skiing, and while that era is not gone, a lot of those skiers have gravitated towards skiing a little bit more. How about yourself? Do you worry about sponsors pulling the plug if you're not out there doing gnarly urban stuff every year and putting out content?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something that everyone should worry about. Even early in their career, you should be weary and always have a little anxiety about where the funding you're receiving is coming from. So especially as I'm getting older, it's definitely a concern of mine. But I feel like I've continued to make myself relevant. You know, you have high years and low years, but I would say over the course of the last couple of years, I've managed to maintain relevance in one way or another. But also, I mean, that's why I'm back in school. I feel like I'm less stressed about it now than I was maybe a couple of years ago, just because I'm working on that backup plan. And honestly, I think it's making me enjoy skiing more, because when you rely on something too heavily, it becomes a point of stress. And it's a bummer to have something that is like the thing you love most in the world also be something that stresses you out. So it's a mix for sure, but I'm just having fun. I bought a snowmobile. I've been going in the backcountry a little more myself and definitely plan to do more of that. But rather than stress about it, like the end coming, because I feel like I have a few years left in me, I'm trying to focus more on just enjoying it and not sweating the little stuff and just being like, I got to be a pro skier. I'm still a pro skier, at least as of right now. That's super cool. Instead of worrying about it ending, I should just have a ton of fun enjoying it while it's still happening.
Like you said, by going back to school and finding a path that you really love, because I think computers and programming satisfy your inner nerd and are able to challenge your mind, like maybe figuring out urban rails. They give you a sense of satisfaction. And when you can find that outside of skiing and realize that your job one day is not going to be skiing, it takes all the pressure off. It's like skiing can be fun again.
Yeah, totally. And not that it ever wasn't fun, but it's weird to be in a position where you're like, oh, I love skiing. I ski because I love it, but I need to do this one trick that I really don't want to do at all. Why am I doing? And then it's like a weird position to be in sometimes. There's definitely guys that treat skiing like it's a job, and I get it, but I would never want that to be me. So even though it is my job, it's pretty cool that I don't have to really treat it too much like it's a job. And I definitely just love skiing so much.
You love skiing so much, but at this point, you are in another world pretty much. You're another planet at least. I believe you're in the middle of the desert right now, and you're working for NASA, which is the last place anybody expected to find you except for maybe yourself, which I highly doubt as well. But how the fuck do you end up with NASA?
Dude, yeah, good question. I'm back in school, and my uncle mentioned that I need to have an internship or something, and it never was even on my radar because my school doesn't even like push for internships. I met with my advisor and was like, do I need to do an internship? She was like, oh yeah, you should be doing an internship at some point. It's like, you never told me that. So I didn't know where to apply and was like, all right, what are cool things you can do with programming? And then I think I went on Reddit and saw NASA needs computer scientists. And I think NASA is like one of the coolest places ever. So I was like, all right, I'll just apply at like the coolest places I can find. So I applied to like Microsoft, NASA, and I think that's pretty much it actually. But I just wanted to see what happened. I had like a phone interview with Microsoft, but I missed their like summer period. And then NASA has a fall internship period. I got a couple phone calls from a couple different mentors. And they're like, yeah, you want to come work for us? I was like, yeah, sure, I guess so. Didn't really think too much about it, but now I'm sitting in this living room all alone in this house in the middle of pretty shitty town in the middle of the Mojave Desert in California. But I just got off a day's work where my boss was talking about installing laser sensor on one of the next rockets that's going to go up on like the Vulcan Heavy.
That's absolutely insane. And it also sounds like you are programming the trajectory of rockets that are coming down from Mars and doing all kinds of crazy shit like that. He's LJ Strenio, not a rocket scientist, a rocket computer scientist. I've never had a rocket computer scientist on the show before, but we do now. And at this point in the show, we go to something I call inappropriate questions. I go to someone that you know, and I ask them to ask you 3 inappropriate questions. I record them, and I play them for you. The person I chose has spent many of nights in close quarters with you. He has smelled all your smells. He's heard all your inner thoughts. I reached out to Andy Parry. He's one of the stars and founders of the Traveling Circus. He's the founder of the Telefriend Tour. And the Telefriend Tour is also looking for a new sponsor, as Rurock just dropped Andy and the tour. So if you want to reach out and sponsor a tour that talks to a bunch of kids, Andy Parry is your guy. He sees like thousands of kids each year and has pizza and money for them. But that is not why we're talking about Andy Parry. He is going to ask you 3 inappropriate questions. They're short and quick. I hope each will elicit a long response from you. I will go with the first one right now. LJ, here we go.
What is the most disgusting thing you've ever drank?
He's trying to set me up to say gnarly stuff.
That's great. That's exactly what this is all about, and don't feel bad about it.
Well, the internet is written in ink, so I don't want to go into too much detail, but I was young once and stupid and hungry in the back of a car and had been drinking heavily. And I once drank just like a little itty-bitty small amount of pee for a Big Mac once. I don't remember the exact scenario, but it was my own pee. It was very watered down, but I don't think you can drink anything much grosser than that.
No, you could. Diarrhea would be way worse than pee, but still, you drank your own pee, and people love that stuff. You can go to websites where people are probably drinking their own pee and other people's pee, so not too out there in the terms of weird things to drink. It's not like you drank a thing of motor oil. It was just your own pee. We are going to go to question number 2.
What is the most disgusting thing you've ever eaten?
Oh, killing me. All right, you want the honest truth?
Yeah, I mean, we might as well be honest.
I once ate a huge thing of dog. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was going to be like, oh, man.
I actually have eaten something super gross. And this is less, I don't know, it's pretty gnarly. So, similar time, like being young, I was in Mammoth with Will. And I don't even know how it came up, but someone bet me $100 that I wouldn't eat my sock for some reason. And so we ended up calling a hospital hypothetically and asking what would happen if like our child ate a sock, if it would like kill them. And they were like super weirded out, but they were like, well, hypothetically, if it was in small enough pieces and it could pass through the system, it would do nothing. If it was one big thing, you might need like surgery. It could like kill you. And it is like super dangerous in retrospect, but I had skied all day in this white cotton sock and I cut it up into little pieces and ate my whole sock.
for $100.
I never even got paid. I never got anything. And it's super dangerous. I cut it up into little pieces and ate it bit by bit. I was really young. It was a long, long time ago, like a different person.
Who bet you that?
I mean, I think it was maybe Bernie Razzo. I think it might have been him. I remember he was there. We were staying at Neil Satirikopoulos' house, but I don't think he was even a part of that. I think it was Bernie. And maybe Garrett was maybe there. But I don't think he bet me. And Will was there, but Will didn't bet me either. I think Bernie owes me $100.
I think he does too. We will go with your final inappropriate question from Andy.
And what is the most disgusting thing you've ever done?
Man, I don't know if there's anything more disgusting than drinking your own pee. I'm trying to think. What's grosser?
There are things grosser, but probably nothing grosser that you've done in your life. So let's think of another odd thing that you've done that you're embarrassed to even talk about. Might as well share it with the world.
Yeah, I thought Will was going to be the one asking my inappropriate questions, and I was waiting because I knew these were coming. I listened.
Awesome.
I was sweating them, but I think a coming of age, all children poop their pants at some point in their life. You're not an adult if you've never pooped your pants.
Sure.
Accidentally at some point. So I was always very open sharing my poopy pants stories, and in high school was very open and told Will, I have like a slew of them, just being like super sick or like, I don't know, just like this or that, or like landing too deep on a jump or something. But I have like a few gnarly ones that I've shared with Will that he loves. I guess it's not even anything out of the ordinary, but I got really sick at a friend's house during a sleepover. And I don't know why, but I was like afraid to poop at his house because it was like down the street. This is when I was like maybe 10. And so I ran home and could like feel it coming out and then wasn't going to make it. And like running up the stairs, just shit my pants. And it like all came down the leg and got all over like the stairs and all down the hallway to the bathroom. And my mom obviously like found the trail of poop to the bathroom and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just don't feel good." And she was like, "Okay, well, the dog pooped all over the house. I'm going to clean it up." Like the best mom ever, like clearly just pooped all over the house. And I'm not like an infant anymore and like super embarrassed about it. And my mom is so damn cool. Without even missing a beat, was like, "Yep, the dog pooped everywhere. I'm going to clean it up." It was just like, "Oh, thanks, Mom."
It's always fun to talk about pooping yourself. My last question, that really isn't an inappropriate question, but could be, I guess. During Real Snow, you got the bronze medal. If you were to judge the videos that you saw, how would you put them?
I mean, this is like being a politician who doesn't vote for themselves. Like, how can you put your heart and soul into something and not choose yourself?
You should choose yourself. You were probably really proud of what you did, and when you finished, you were like, "Hey, I think I can win with this."
Yeah, I would have put myself on top 10 times out of 10. I'm not bitter about it, but I felt like I deserved to win, and I'm okay saying that. I feel like I can humbly say that I think I deserved to win. But I didn't, and all the other edits were really sick, and in retrospect, that's fine. It's sweet. I love seeing when people still have posted being like, "Oh, I still think LJ is the best." Like, that's why we make videos, not to like win a medal. It's to like stoke people out. So I love seeing that, but I think I should have won. But man, Henrik's and Magnus's were super sick too. But the thing I was most bummed about was like talking to Johnny Durst, and dude, everyone was like sleeping on his and Wallish's too. And I just remember the overshadowing of theirs and Johnny just being so bummed. They worked so hard, and people should go back and watch Will's second video. It was so sick. And then it was like it never even happened after that. I don't know. Making videos into contests, it's a mixed bag. It's really cool in some ways, but it sucks that sometimes stuff gets thrown under the rug.
Yeah, but what doesn't suck is your run in skiing, man. I mean, you went from a kid who was a ski boarder and claimed to be a ski boarder, because when I talked to Andy, he was saying, "No, Will and I were hardcore ski boarders. I don't think LJ was a ski boarder. He just did it a little bit. But you were a ski boarder, right?" Yeah, they said it.
I still have sole plates on my ski boards. I bet he doesn't even have sole plates. Well, I have sole plates. I can do sole grinds on mine.
That's a conversation you can have with him. I believe you that you were a ski boarder who transitioned to long skis and has helped change up the urban game. And it's always fun to watch your edits because they're super creative. super high risk, and with the outtakes, there's always some comedy at your expense, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, glad that it's been entertaining because I've had a blast. And yeah, thanks for having me on, man. That's been fun to reminisce.
So that was time with LJ Strenio, and that's way more than I've ever talked to him before, and he's a pretty cool guy. If you haven't seen his X Games segment, check it out. And if you're one of those people that like to see a good crash reel, LJ has one from his X Games part that's about 30 minutes long, and it shows you exactly what goes into making one of these edits a reality. So much risk, so much pain, so much determination. That said, I watched about 3 minutes of the crash reel and turned it off. It's pretty gnarly, and watching pain is not my thing. That's the podcast for this week. At this point, I want to thank you for listening, ask you to subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to me on. If you have any questions or concerns, you can email me. My email address is mike@thepowellmovement.com, and I will get back to you. Finally, I want to thank my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optic, the 10 Barrel Brewery, and the Summit at Snoqualmie. Have a great week, everyone.